Hey, it's Crumbs. You're lost? How do you not know where you are? It's Thorin's channel.
Right, I'm here for another episode of Reflections, and my guest is going to be Mithy. And I actually know for a fact I definitely did one of these interviews with Mithy, but this is how old you are now, Mithy. I think I did it with you when you were in fucking ninjas in pajamas. If you remember, I came to like Stockholm because I was there for like some event or whatever. And I remember I did one with you, like Zoro Zero, like Get Right or something, because you were on Nip at the time, you know, and we were all just in this place. That's all you need to write there. Fucking Zoro Zero. I've just mentioned that guy's name. He hasn't even played League of Legends about 6 years or something. So, do you feel old? Are you a veteran now, mate? Are you old?
No, I don't think so. I'm a veteran, yes, but I'm not old. Just the other people are a bit young. That's all.
There we go. That's the mentality to have. Exactly. Right. So, in fact, I always say that to people because Dom's always like, oh, I'm a fucking boomer. I'm 30. I'm like, mate, I'm like 7 years older. You shut the fuck up. But anyway, whatever. Here's how we'll start, right? Because I did an interview with you in the past. In theory, and I'll link it like wherever you link it at the top of the screen, people can obviously go and watch that. But what I try to do with the Reflections interviews is we won't go through all the stuff in that because since that was like 1 or 2 years in your career, I'm sure it was like super in depth about every team you were on, every teammate. But we might talk about
I'm sure I talked a lot.
Listen, that was one of your strengths, mate. That's how I knew you'd be a great captain. You never shut the fuck up. You thought you knew everything. Not a lot's changed, right?
Not a lot has changed.
Exactly.
Not a lot has changed.
Right, so what we'll do is this. I thought I would ask a couple of questions, though, about that time period, just to see what you think about it now. So let me just ask you this initially. Instead of asking, like, the boring question like the tournament you in, one thing I want to ask you was this. Now that we know, because I've actually spoken to him recently, and sadly, Freeze has basically told me, because he didn't get any LEC offers this year, and he didn't think he was going to do next year, he kind of thinks there's like no point, and so he's basically becoming a coach now, and I think he said he doesn't think he'll ever play again. Like, he thinks it's kind of like, you know, that window's closed. So since you were basically the guy who helped make him a top AD carry, and it was kind of where we got introduced to the world with him in that sense. I know you had a choice between him and Tabs, and you went with him for an NIP as well. And this is a guy where I always said to people from the outside, it's like, I know people know Forgiven had a career where it's like he never really fulfilled all that he could have done, and he was, you know, he wasn't in the right teams. But Freeze is like kind of in that mold as well, right? Like, what do you think of this guy's career? Because I don't feel like I never really got to see his potential fully. What do you think?
I think he was good. I don't think he was necessarily outstanding. And I think a lot of people judge character based on solo queue, which didn't really help him, which is wrong in my opinion. Anyway, I mean, you can tell by Caps is the best example, I'd say. But I don't know if he got a chance. Like, I'm actually not too sure how it went with him. I would have to Google him, and I'm not gonna do it right now. But yeah, I feel like he was like in the middle of things, you know, and as an AD carry, there's not so much you can do to shine in a shit team. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of weird for sure.
When you look back on the year when you played with him in NIP, where I always get flamed for this, mate, because what's funny is at the time, because you guys had that weird scenario where you had all these good players, but then you never had a proper jungler because Herkbot like went away immediately with like the eye problems, and then famously you kept bringing in like good junglers online, but they were never old enough to play the fucking LAN of the Challenger thing. So you'd always have to have some like not as good junglers. You never qualified, right? You were always close to qualifying. Like, people think I was overhyping that team where I was like, listen, they had like some of the best players. It's just, you know, the team didn't work somehow. What do you think of that team? Because if you look back now, mate, that team was like Freeze, you obviously had a great career since then. Nukeduck was on that team who obviously came back and had a great career. Like, Zoro Zero obviously is the one who's disappeared, but everyone remembers him as like a could have been player. When you look back on the NIP team, how do you think of it now?
Bunch of self-centered morons, kids. Yeah.
Pretty good at the game though, right?
Yeah, I think we were very good actually. We were very, very good at the small things of the game, but very bad at the important things in the game. And then we focused on the wrong things, and we didn't really evolve into like a team that would be consistently good performing in the important games when people played safer and
yes,
you know, you had to use your brain and stuff because we were just so self-centered. Like I guess the ongoing meme in the team was we lost the game, but I was 40 CS up in lane, so I guess you guys must have fucked up something.
Okay.
So I don't even want to look at the replay.
Sure. Like, since you say that, because like that was one of the things I noticed about that team is like basically people just expected to like smash the lane and therefore the game to be over. And when if it ever got to an even game like all those promotion games, it was a macro game. It was just nothing happened and you just lost the game. It was so shit to watch. So since people later in your career, you've been given a lot of credit as like a guy who's been a captain and a shot caller and a guy who's helped a lot of his teammates understand the macro game and the mid game setups, etc. Was this a team? Did you have understanding of that stuff back then? Did you develop it later? What do you think it was like?
Well, I researched back then, but I didn't really get the chance to build on these things, and I didn't really know much, really. It was just that once I got banned, and I kind of had time to reflect on not only my behavior, all that stuff, but also on like what it would take for me to actually start winning things. And it wasn't really about how many CS I can get ahead in lane, or if I can, hit all of my skill shots. Actually, it didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. What was important is how the team played, how the team, connected with each other and saw the game in an equal manner, and how you had a plan going into every game, and everyone was aligned. And that's that's the mindset that I try to go into Origen, and I think the guys there, they had a lot of, there's a lot of veterans there, a lot of experience, and they gave me their 2 cents, adding my 2 cents to it, and it started to make sense. And then we built it on that, and when we played better teams, we learned from them. We didn't learn from them in a mechanical way. We learned from them on what are they doing as a team better. How can we shut down this guy that is cucking us, or what is this guy doing? It was just an open-mindedness of like, oh, this mid laner is cucking us, why? And then we would actually figure out why without it being an attack to anyone's ego. It was just be like, oh, we are gonna learn. We're worse now, we will be better later. And yeah, it was the opposite way around. We would actually play better on stage than we did in scrims, because we would actually learn what's going on.
Even though, like I joked at the beginning, like it's years and years since we did that interview. At the time, because League of Legends itself had only been like a pro game, like that was like the second year of LCS, for example, when it was called LCS in Europe, right? When you got banned, did you actually ever really think like this might just be it? Like maybe it's just done as a pro, or maybe I go to a different game, or maybe just pro gaming is done for me?
Yeah, for sure. I was actually pretty close to not getting unbanned. I just couldn't handle playing like 10, 12 hours a day without getting stressed out. I had anger issues my whole life, so it was really hard to stop punching my table and stop writing and just doing all these things. Like, what do I do with my anger? And it was hard. I think it was only towards like a later period where I started going for runs, and that helped. And I think now I've calmed myself down a little bit more. But yeah, I think growing up as a kid and so on, I always had anger issues, so it was really hard. And also, it is true that the environment now is a lot different to the environment there was back then. So, like in terms of internet, that the internet back then was the Wild West. There was no professional scene. Like even the Counter-Strike players at the time, which was the only professional thing there was,
Sure,
were fucking going crazy at each other in LAN events or online. So there was not really a big professional approach to all this stuff. And I think Riot were the first to, take that direction. And I think it was just a hard transition for me. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Right, when you came to this Origen team, actually, I've done actually a whole bunch of shows this year with Amazing as like my co-host, and he always talks about stories. I can tell that was basically low-key his favourite team to play in, kind of because of what you alluded to earlier. Like, he loves the fact that he always gives that team as the example of what problem-solving is like in European teams, because obviously he was in TSM. And apparently, if you're in the American teams, oftentimes it's like They do it. They try to be like very civil, if you know what I mean. Like they try to just sit around in a circle, and you say in a very like polite voice, like I think we made a mistake that we but you don't say like the jungler fucked up. You're like, we made a mistake with our pathing, and we need to like set our lanes up correctly, guys, and let's review the VOD. And the idea is, if anyone sort of like says anything aggressive, then they're looked at as like, oh, there's something wrong with him. Whereas he basically said, like, to him, Origin is like European problem solving. It's more like, if you got a problem, you just give your idea. You say, like, I thought we fucked up the way this was. Why are you picking that champion? Next game, let's do it this way. And he basically always said, like, you're one of the main people who did that. Like, basically, he said, because you had all these veterans, they could just handle it, though. So if you were telling, like, Soaz or Expected, like, they're super veterans, they've been in every scenario, they've been in every final, like, it sounds like if you can handle that mentality, it was a fucking sick team to be in, right? You were figuring out all the shit out, how to play the games. And this is the prime time, season 5, of when the brain side of the game was super powerful, right?
Yes, I think a big thing, a bigger reason why that was possible was not just because of the veteran side of things, but because we had, a good established baseline culture from the situation we were put in, where we, I think Peke also did a very good job at it, whether it was intentional or not, but I think it was just his personality. But yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is that we went out for food together. We had this whole gaming house in Tenerife experience. We were playing paddle in like our paddle court there in the mansion, and going to the pool. We didn't really go out too much, but we did a lot of stuff together, whatever it was, and we were there 5 guys. We figured stuff out. We were like a bunch of guys in a house, and we had like this brotherhood feeling, right? So when there was an argument, or when someone would have a problem, like for example, I wouldn't be able to, I think to this day, I'm not able to do that. I can't just go to the next game and be like, next game will be better, guys. Just go next game. It's like, no, like what the fuck did we do wrong? Like what's our mistakes? Was it just me playing bad? Then just tell me, was it you playing bad? Then just say it. You played bad, go next game. That's fine. But tell me why you played bad, what you did wrong, I wanna help you, I'm here for you, and I want you to be there for me. And with that culture in mind, it was a lot easier for us to talk about what needed to be fixed. And I think that's what made us get so good so fast at the time, yeah, and catch up to FNATIC.
One thing about that team, even the one next year where you had Power of Evil and then Expected came back in the playoffs, is that team was just known to be like, because it was veterans as well, just clutch. Like on LAN, in playoffs, in matches, like famously the next year in the spring was the one where you guys like beat H2K when they were supposed to be favored to beat you. Like what do you think the secret to why that team was so good was? That
team was a fucking disaster. When Power of Evil came in, nothing... Like, I need to be politically correct about this, because he is actually a very nice guy. And like, if you listen to what I just said earlier, when you put this unknown person in, he doesn't know what's going on, but there's like a bond that is transcended already, So when this guy comes in, he is being super nice, super polite, and we are not so nice and so polite. We're actually very radical in the way we say things, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's like
it was working before,
personal.
right? Yeah.
Exactly. But with him it was different, and we had to adapt to him and go through a lot of trouble, bonding with him. And he also had a very different view of how he wanted to play the games compared to what we have established before with Peke, who was really like all trick pony. Like he would just adapt or play what was good, play for the draft, play different styles. And again, he will try to learn and understand what other people are, because he was not good at any, like, it's not like he was like, holy shit, this guy is the best at this. He was just smart about, hey, this guy is beating me on this, and this, because he's doing all of these things better. So I'm going to go ahead, understand why he's doing these things better, and just like, adapt myself to this person and pick champions that can screw with him in draft and all that stuff, So it was a very different approach with Power of Evil. I think he still has the same approach, and he's been super successful with it. We just weren't able to, like, I guess, trust him to play this style, even though we really, really tried and we adapted. But then in the spring final, Perkz was just all over him, and it was really, really hard to deal with, and we didn't know how to. So, yeah, that was our season, and I think like because of that and other problems, we just crumbled, and I was just tired of losing in the finals. Honestly, it was getting very overwhelming. So, yeah.
So, okay, then that brings me to a point that, like, I know you vaguely alluded to in the past, but at the time it was a big drama where, because G2 went with their real team that won the spring and went to MSI, and they famously said that thing of, like, we were on vacation, and then they got banged out, like, 2-8 or whatever, and everyone laughed in their face, like, ha ha ha, vacation. It was like a big meme at the time. What people don't know is behind the scenes, it wasn't quite just that they went to vacation. It was, like, basically, this is where that whole thing comes from, where people think Perkz is like the master at poaching the players, isn't it? Because all of a sudden, right afterwards, the bot lane of OG came and was the G2 bot lane for the next year and a half. So, how did that move come about? I don't think you can get wrecked for poaching out. It's enough years away. I feel like it's fine to say whatever might have happened now.
I don't think so.
Okay.
So what I think a TLDR of what happened was me and Jesper wanted to win. We knew we had a good opportunity to join G2, and we went ahead and took it. And I think it was, looking back at it in hindsight, I think it was a very, what's the word? Like, we did it too fast, right. Especially, I mean, now I'm not old. I've grown up a little bit more. And I kind of see that, maybe taking one more split and playing that next split out would have not been the worst of things. And I think it would have helped everyone more, I don't think the situation would have changed because I still had in my brain to win, but at the time I was just so upset with the loss. I just couldn't handle going to the next split and losing in the finals again. So yeah, we took a radical decision to join G2.
Because one thing that was definitely true, by the way, this wasn't something that was just like Twitter banter. The other players in OG were like pretty pissed at that, dude. Like, some of them felt like betrayed, like, or like, what the fuck? Like, I thought, like, especially the ones that have been with you for a year, they were like, what the hell? We're like, I thought the things were going all right. We'd figure it out.
I mean, we all knew things were not going all right. I don't think it was about that. I think they just felt betrayed because the ship was sinking and we jumped first. That's it.
Okay,
we didn't sink all together and then left together, which is sort of the culture that we had created in the team. So it is fair for them to feel that way about us. There's but yeah, I think that's the reality of things. Was the ship was sinking. I took my first chance and jumped, and they stayed there. I took the safety boat and they drowned with the Titanic. Like, it's bad. I'm sure a lot of the guys in the Titanic were feeling bad their whole lives because of that. Maybe I will too. What can I say?
Well, here's the thing. Luckily, it did work out because then you just won the next 3 finals. So the question is, was winning the was the feeling of winning? Was it everything you hoped it would be?
I felt like it was. So the first time I won in summer, I felt like I had to win, or I would have really struggled psychologically with everything that was going on. That it felt more like a blood victory, Like I did what I had to do.
Relief. Yeah.
To win, and I won. And that's it, I freaking did it. That's my goal. I achieved my goal. And then it was like, okay, so now what, And that was when it hit me, like, oh shit, like where am I? What have I done? This is different now. And we went to Worlds. The experience was totally different. The pressure was a lot higher. It was just like a totally different feeling from the Origen feeling, culture, fan base that had been created. And it was a struggle for sure. But in my head, I was not like, at the time, it was like 5 years ago now, or I don't even know, 4 years ago now. I've been trying to win since 2013. So that was 3 years later. I still hadn't won shit. And I just couldn't handle it anymore because I felt like I was the best support in Europe for so many years already. And I just didn't win anything. And it it was really hard for me in the back of my mind, and I wasn't patient enough. I never have been a very patient person, so that was a mistake, not being patient. But yeah, I don't regret it because I won. So yeah.
I always think one of the craziest like narrative turnarounds I've seen is Perkz, because if everyone remembers, even though he won the 2 championships the first time he came in the league, because of that success, people then just looked at him like, right, you're supposed to just do awesome at Worlds now. And so because he had like the sort of dodgy MSI and Worlds, that was where all those memes, like they weren't just memes back then. Like the people really were making fun of him, like, oh, he's a choker, he's like a fucking, he's falling apart, like he's crying after Worlds. Like this guy then, the transformation's insane though, because now he's considered like the most clutch player ever. Like, he's got that fucking insane record where he's like 22-3 in like game 4s or something. What would you say about this guy? Obviously, you knew him quite well.
I mean, I did at it. So I felt like I'm a very intuitive person. It doesn't mean that I know everything, but I feel like I have a good intuition. And at the time, I kept telling him like, hey, your play style, your pose, your way of approaching things, you're gonna hit a wall very hard, and I don't know when. I just know you're going to do it, and just I can't prepare you for it. I can't do anything to help you. You're running straight into a wall, and there's nothing I can do about it. And he ran into the wall. That was MSI, and then he got back up, and and then he started seeing the walls coming at him, and he became the player he is today. It was an important step in his career to go through it, and I knew he was so talented that he just had to go through it, and then it would depend on how he reacted to that, So I think we did a very good job at supporting him in G2 at the time, and the team through that loss, through our own loss, and the next things to come in the 2017, that's when we actually started really bonding and really getting our culture and our like everything was starting to make sense for us, like what our direction was, how we wanted to do things. Joey Weldon did a really good job at that too. Sharks came along at some point too, and Duffman is still there. But yeah, like the coaching staff overall, they also, whether they recognize it or not, they actually chipped in to the whole culture. And I think 2017 was a great year. Like I cherish it probably even more than Origen in certain ways, because that was a year of hard work and like actual intentional bonding. Origen was just chemistry was there, personalities were there, it just all made sense, it was good, but that was intentional. Everything there was done with a purpose, and it was a really, really beautiful experience. Really
what was the 2017 MSI like? The one where you made the finals? I remember that was the one where there's like an insane like solo kill Perkz has on Faker. It's like that was one of those ones where even though it was a couple of years away, you could already feel like, fuck, maybe Western teams could actually do something against like the top Asian teams,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. All I remember about that MSI is us struggling in scrims a lot, having a good time at the buffet, having a lot of food, and generally, just trying to enjoy ourselves while, not having a good time in scrims, going on stage, losing the best of ones, having a total wrong grasp of the meta, Trick having a terribly hard time adapting to the junglers and the meta that the other junglers were playing there, and then us making a circle before we kind of clutched it into quarters by beating TSM, I think. Yes. It was. Yeah, so we made it into quarters somehow, even though we all our hope was lost. And then the G2 best of 5 hit. We sat down, we analyzed our team. There was, it was a group effort, and that's why it's very interesting to me how it is now. Where at least how I've seen it in the teams that I've played after G2, where it's not the players who analyze their opponents as much as we did in G2. In G2, like Trick would watch every single guy's pathing. I would watch all of the mid game, early game. Everyone would watch. Jesper, Luca, like maybe they had not so much, but everyone would actually put so much effort into studying our opponents, and And then, we knew Trick was having a really, really tough time, just like Perkz had been having, like on the world's stage the year before. And we made a circle. We all told him how much we loved him, and he went on stage and smurfed it, And after that, I think we just started believing in ourselves, And again, World Elite, they were super cocky. I don't think we had won a single scrim against them for like 20 games or something. And then we went there, and I first time things. My team encouraged me to first time champions because they knew it was the best way to win. I went on to my team and told them, hey guys, I suck at this matchup. I can't play them. I'm too bad. This guy is going to beat me. Can you guys help me? And they, they understood, and they went on and helped me. They weren't like, oh, screw this guy, he can't play these matchups. That's where we're going to lose, But we all worked together to cover our flaws and figure something out, And I don't know. It was that was my experience for MSI. It wasn't about what happened in the game.
Sounds
I really
amazing.
don't care. But that's what that's the things, the memories that I take away,
That whole thing that you said there, like the G2 in best of 5 memes. Well, obviously the problem with that, right, is because the team at Worlds, that's just best of ones, isn't it? People thought that was just like an excuse, like saying like, oh, we're better in a series than a best of one. Sounds like what like someone would say if they were a bad loser. But obviously that was like some real shit. Like in the summer of 2017 was the one where in the quarters, like I've talked to even those guys in that Splice team, mate. They were like, we were supposed to win that series. Like we were the better team. Like G2 was in shit form. Like everyone thought we could do it. And like that, it just showed like that team was just clutch, right? What was different about series when G2 played them?
So usually at the start, so when we played, for example, Splice, right, we came out of the split, so we didn't have as much information on them and didn't really know what our direction was going to be as much as we did for semifinals and finals. But what the reason was the honesty. We would go there and be like, hey, this is not working, this is working. Like I think against Splice, Luca was having a really bad game, and he'd be like, sorry guys, I'm playing so bad, and everyone would just encourage him and be like, dude, like, I don't fucking care. I'm gonna carry you. Like, just sit back and farm. Like everyone would, be nice about things. And be open to talk about their insecurities. And I think that was the reason why we were able to overcome a lot of these situations. And then when I think that we also had this confidence, like this undergoing confidence that if I fuck up and I have a bad game, there's probably a good chance someone else in my team is just gonna carry me. So as long as I, don't in too hard, there's always hope, that the team fight is gonna go well. And yeah, that's why I think we performed better in a best of series.
If you're a guy who, like you say, you'd been in like 3 finals, lost them all, different teams even, like in terms of lineups or different years, to win 3 titles in a row, how does that change things? Was it a big deal?
I think I started seeing things in a very different way. So after I won 3 finals, I started seeing like, oh shit, what happens now? Like I knew the bond we had in G2 was crazy. I knew Trick wanted to go back to Korea to pursue something there because he was just bored. Like he came to EU, won 4 titles in a row, and he was like, well, I want to go to Korea. If I can't make it out of groups, I want to actually play in the real league. And he wanted to take on that mission, and I respected that. I think Expect was like kind of in between of what he wanted to do, and Luca wanted to try and make a full European team. So I thought that we had a very good thing going on, and I just sort of didn't really want to, break that off. And I thought to myself, what are my ambitions? If everyone has these ambitions, what are my own? And I always had been chasing to be the best support in Europe, right? Like that was my biggest ambition. That's how I've always approached gaming, is I want to be the best. And I never really could show that because, I did show it in specific times, but I never could, like, in terms of titles, show it. And I thought, and it's very dumb to think about now, but this was my experience, was, well, if I stay in Europe, I still have to win, I don't even know how many more LCS to even be close to Yellow Star. And no matter how many I win, Perkz will always have one over me.
True. Which
is going to hunt me. And I will want to, I will want to prove myself without Perkz at some point. And then for NA franchising was a thing. that was the first year I didn't know EU was going to happen. I didn't really believe in esports, so I didn't really know. I mean, that's a bad statement. It's not like I don't believe in esports. It's just I couldn't really believe that EU was actually going to get their shit together because there was a million countries and all that stuff.
A lot of people back then didn't think EU would ever be franchised. It was only after NA that it kind of became a thing, right?
Yeah, at least not so fast, Maybe it would take 3 years or something. Right. So I was like, maybe I should go to America, get the franchising money and actually get an NA LCS, which is something that Yellowstar never got. I know it's really, it's not a it's very dumb to say right now, but it's always been something that I was chasing for. So I was like, if I get that NA LCS, I will be doing something without Perkz. And I will also be proving myself to be the best support in Europe, because Yellowstar went to NA and he failed. So I go to NA, I succeed. Then that's it. That's
it's a good story.
It's proven, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll become a superstar. Blah blah blah. All that stuff. So yeah, then it was just a fucking disaster.
We'll get into that. So okay, along those lines though, let me ask about that mentality, because this is why I asked basically, what does it change to be a champion? Like, why were you so torn when you didn't win? There are some pro players, actually a lot of them, where it's like they say they want to win, and if they win, they might really enjoy it at that moment. But some of them just like to play the game, or some of them just like to be a pro. Not all of them have crazy drive like that. Like even what you're saying there is like something out of a movie, mate. Like another person, I know a lot of players who, if they're in a team that's winning, they'll never think, well, this other teammate has one more title than me. They'll think, this is awesome, I get to win, cool, I'm the champion. And it's only some hater like me will be like, well, you're not the real champion, it's the other guy who's the character. It's only me doing that on a talk show that ever does that. So where does this come from, this angle where it's like you were comparing yourself to Yellowstar, you're trying to beat his storyline, you want to win more than Perkz, even though your team, it's kind of a cool personality angle, right?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think I mean, looking back at it, I think it's a very unrealistic and immature, but yeah, I mean, that's who I am. I can't really change who I am. It is who or what made me be as good as it made me be, and it's what gave me the drive, and I don't regret a single bit.
When we talk about the bot lane with Zven, and this particular period where you had all the success in OG and then in G2, right? This was when it was dubbed the classic, the best in the West. Like, you guys had that title, everyone said it's the best Western bot lane. Obviously, you've done it in 2 totally different teams, so you got a lot of credit in this regard, right? What do you think the strengths of this bot lane were? Like, for example, when I alluded to earlier with Freeze, people gave you all that credit for, you helped Freeze come up and then Tabs come up, and so did you help make Zven? Well, how did this bot lane work?
I think that's up to him to say, whether I helped make him or not. I think I was a part of his career, and I helped him in some ways, I think it was mostly that, we kept on that idea of we are going to figure out what is wrong, and we are just gonna go with it, and I think what made us famous was the fact that we didn't really lose lanes, not crazily. We would, always put up a fight. I think even when we went to NA and we had all these tough times, we didn't really lose lanes that were some of the lanes that we were put in positions that were unplayable. We would still managed to find a way, and I think that's what made us what made us good. We had really good macro. If we got ahead, we would be able to shut the game out from bot lane, and we knew what we had to do. And I think we were just smart players playing the game. I don't think we were necessarily the best players. I mean, at least I'll talk for myself, but I think what made us good is the ability to think on the moment and be smart about things. And I think I got so tunneled on that idea that, I mean, not that idea, but the idea of helping the team work together and being good with the team, that I kind of just stopped neglecting my own strengths as a player, which were, as a matter of fact, I have always been, I think, a very good laner. And when I came back to Europe, I proved it, in my opinion, that I was a good laner, a good roamer, and a solid playmaker and team fighter. But yeah, I think there were a lot of other things that I just couldn't really do because of the the problems we had in NA, you know. But yeah, and just finding my identity and all that. But yeah, I think me and Jesper, going back to that answer, me and Jesper were good because we were the most consistent, the most solid. You know, you always had a threat in the bot lane. That's it.
Right, just before we move off the G2 topic, one of the reasons why, even though Youngbuck himself had the 4 championships in a row, normally if you win and you're a coach, you get all the credit, you get the Coach of the Split Awards, everyone's like, well, this guy fucking must be amazing, whether they are or not. But what's mad is, in your case, because he had you in your team, in his team rather, and famously, even Perkz has credited you a lot, like you taught him so much about the game, people made it sound, in the industry, this was like what people used to say is the like rumour behind his back. They would be like, oh, Mithy's the real coach of that team, and like Youngbuck just sort of does, I don't know, you know, he's like the cheerleader, or he's nice to them, or he runs the practice, or he's just, you know, the official guy. And I know he himself, when I've talked to him, sort of did feel like he had to sort of eventually step out of that shadow, and he had to sort of like prove that he had his own skills. And the interesting thing is, I've actually been a big fan of his the last few years when he didn't play with you as a coach, that is, because I've noticed he has a totally different skill set to normal coaches. Like, he's not the coach who's like the fucking draft genius and his style's more like problem solving and how to have communication with people and establish relationships with people who otherwise might be troublesome. So what was it like to play with Youngbuck, and how would you describe his skills?
I think he learned a lot with us, and I think he took a lot of those learnings to the other teams he was in. We were really ahead of ourselves in G2 in terms of the meta. I think we had this enlightening moment when we went to IEM and we lost to Flash Wolves in the final, and we kind of got I had a long conversation with Swordard at the time with a translator. And she helped a lot. And, you know, I think from there, I just kind of like sat back and started thinking on like, why does the game feel different when we play against these Asian teams? What are they doing different? And how can we do that, you know, in Europe? How can we change? What are we doing wrong? And started going through every single thing and what felt right. And that's when we started actually figuring out real League of Legends, what I consider the game right now. And I think Joey was in there with this whole experience of us learning all this stuff, so he could then take it to a different team, you know. I think he did a really good job fitting into our team and into me. I take a lot of space, and I think he gave me that space and, you know, helped me and, you know, found his place within that space. And I think that's a very, very hard skill to have anyway. So him doing that is a very respectful thing. And yeah, I think he like within the space that I gave him, which wasn't that much, I think he did a really fucking good job. So you know, yeah, not to say like I think he was the one that got well done in, which was something that we actually really needed and was something that Joey didn't really know how to do, or anyone else in the team. And so props to him and to Weldon, of course. But yeah, he made a lot of really good decisions, I think. And yeah, and the fact that he then wanted to, you know, to take his career further and you know, take on new experiences and learn more and, you know, take more of that space, I think it's completely respectable. And, you know, it's no surprise that he did so well, and he's still doing so well. And actually, I think he has good drafts. So yeah.
Since you like in the Origen team, that was a team that was able to match up with almost any team you played against. Then in this team in G2, you were amazing in the best of fives. And as you say here, like you kind of figured out how to play League of Legends. Can you give us some sense? I know obviously you're still going to be a coach now, so there's a little bit of trade secrets here maybe, but can you give us a sense of what's like the Mithy vision of how League of Legends should be played?
Yeah. I think the 5 players should be connected in an idea or like a vision of how the game is supposed to be played. So they should be thinking as one as much as possible, and they should be trusting each other in their own place and giving and receiving information within that trust. So whether the decision is right or wrong shouldn't mean that they're going for it. You know, they shouldn't play for themselves, and they shouldn't be afraid to die for each other. It should be, you know, it should be a united thing. It should be like a moving organism. Like everyone is together in it. And whether I think that whether the decision is right or wrong doesn't really matter, as long as it's taken together. I mean, that's like the simple way of putting it, but I think League of Legends is really simple, actually. And yeah, I think that's like the best way of putting it, I'd say. At least to start things off. Yeah.
Well, we'll put it this way. We can dig a bit deeper. When you say it like that, it's because, by the way, anything that has any wisdom in life, I've noticed this. It's the reason why those phrases always just sound super simple. Like if you hear like the Buddhist one where they're like, all is one. But if you just hear that and you've never looked into it, you're going to be like, well, that's just an obvious comment. What the fuck's that? But it's like you kind of have to know what the experience is to get to the point to say that, so that it means something. So when you say that there, right, again, every fan might think, well, isn't that obvious? Yeah, everyone should do the same thing and understand. It's like, no, to this day, if a fan goes and watches LEC when it starts again, or LCS, they're going to see a whole bunch of teams in the mid-game, for example, where they're moving backwards and forwards, and do they want to take this fight, or do they want to back off from this fight? Should we take this dragon? Should we not take this dragon? Or are we actually coming to do a gank hit? No, don't. Go back. Like, it's actually, most teams don't have that, right? It's actually rare that teams really zone into what you're talking about.
Yes, I don't mean about the small things. I think it's a more general experience when you're playing the game, about others, like decisions that someone makes. Like it's normal that there's doubt within things, but when there isn't doubt, there shouldn't be doubt from someone else. So if I'm convinced of something, there shouldn't be anyone else in my team doubting or doing something different. And even whether I'm convinced and I'm wrong or not, that shouldn't change the decision that someone else in my team makes. So another thing is that actually it gets worse. It's been getting worse progressively, and I think the worst one, the worst ended one, is America or NA, is because League is very profitable right now. You can make a lot of money. You can be a player, not win shit, and make money.
Yes, especially in LCS.
And as long as you get a job next year, you're the one that's looking good. It doesn't really matter whether you're winning or not. Realistically speaking, you want to win, and it's nice to win, but do you really need to? Do you really? You don't. And I think with that in mind, I had a really hard time transitioning to that mindset. I'm not saying it's a bad mindset, because as a professional, you want to be a tool within a toolbox, right? And let things kind of like fall in place, and you do your job and focus on doing your job at the best of your ability, focus on your strengths, cover your weakness, blah, blah, blah. But when I played, and it's not that I want to brag, it's just when we used to play online games back then, as what am I millennial? As millennials?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't really like, if you won a fucking mousepad. It wasn't about and if you lost, you didn't win a mousepad. Like, who gives a shit? It was about the rep. It was about who was the best. Who can brag, who can
Status.
Yeah. It was about the EPIN. How you'd call it back then,
Yes.
So you had to do whatever it took to win, because if you didn't win, then nothing is worth it, So I think that whatever it takes was lost along the way, and yeah, I don't even know what we're talking about.
Well, put it this way, we'll transition this to the TSM angle, because obviously in TSM this wasn't happening. And in fact, that's one of those teams where this is where people don't know. I'll be very fair to people, especially about things in the game, if I think a certain way. So for example, I've always said, when I saw that roster being made, like, listen, I had my questions about the Mike Young pickup. I wasn't that in on that personally. But when I saw that they brought you and Zven over and that they were going to bring the team in after obviously TSM had underperformed a bunch, I remember thinking, like, this looks fucking awesome. Like, this looks like the solution. I'd always heard from internal people within TSM players, the one thing they always lacked was they didn't feel like they had strong leadership, like good shot calling. I thought, right, Mithy's literally the best person for that. He's been doing it for all these years in his teams. So can you give us some sense? What didn't work? Like, it didn't look like Mithy from Europe ever properly arrived in TSM.
Well, I think I was on a decline because I was not very aware that I was on a decline. Like I wasn't aware that I was actually failing mechanically because we were winning not because of how well I was performing. We were winning because we were a good team. So I was focusing on being a good team and then just letting my mechanics, carry me to whatever strengths and weaknesses they take me. Um, so that was one thing that kind of like showcased itself there. And then the other thing is, like I feel like I took for granted how good my junglers were in Amazing and Trick. And I think Mike Young was very inexperienced. I suggested to take Mithy at the time, which is kind of ironic since he was the best jungler for the next 2 years in America. But TSM thought that he would be slacking or whatever, like he was a slacker and so on. So we had to take Mike, and he was very inexperienced in many ways, and then we took Grig, and he was also very inexperienced. And I wasn't really a shot caller, like I said before. I didn't necessarily. I mean, I played my part, in the orchestra, but I wasn't a shot caller, so to say. It was just that the vision in the team was clear. So whenever I chipped in anything within that vision, everyone would just completely understand. I didn't have to say like, "Yo, guys, let's go on the mid wave. Let's do this. Let's take the Drake." Like if you even as of today, if you listen to NA in-houses, you can see how much they need to speak to each other.
Americans talk all the time compared to Europeans in games, I've noticed.
Yeah, in EU, you don't either you know or you don't know, and if you don't know, why am I playing with you?
Yes.
Either I teach you or I kick you. That's how it works.
That's the title of the video. That's good.
No, but at least that's how it was back then. I think things have changed a lot, but that's the idea, right? So I think in NA people talk a lot about what's going to happen, how we're going to win, what are we going to do. And in EU, there's a vision, there's a conversation, many conversations that are had before the game, within different other people's games, and conclusions that are being arrived to. And then, once you're in the game, all these things just click because you are a moving organism, right? So yeah, it just makes sense. And so I played my part in the orchestra, but I didn't really micro anyone. And then I tried to help Mike, not just in game, because I wasn't.
He had problems just being a pro jungler, basically, right? I heard he was like really good in solo queue, but like in terms of the pro game, he didn't really like get the concepts.
Yes, exactly. And then I tried to. I was very like unsatisfied with his decisions in game, and I tried to help him in game, and that also made me, on top of already having issues, made me even be worse, or like not be able to learn other things because I had to always fall back to my core, which was Braum, Thresh, Tamkench. That's it. So it just made me fall back into that space because I didn't really feel comfortable with how we were playing as a team. And I think the process, I was very also not aware of how I should approach it to teach everyone within the time given to me, and at the same time deal with the newfound hate, and it was just a very hard experience.
Right. If I ask you about what it was like to play with Bjergsen, I don't want it to be like every interview I see where someone asks that, where all they do is talk about who he is as a person, like, oh, great guy, like teammate, was cool, like really hardworking. I want to know literally as a mid laner, to play with him as a mid laner, because you had some amazing mid laners. You obviously had nukeduck, and then you had fucking Perkz, like later even you had nukeduck again. So what was Bjergsen like in that regard? Because you've had some pretty good mids, mate.
I've been blessed. He was a very good professional. I want to talk to him about as a player, right? But this is, I think, player has, it's a two-side thing. It's not just in game. So I think he was a very, very strong professional. I think he was very insightful in how he approached his life to be at his best, or at least he tried, to read a lot, think a lot, be open-minded a lot, and given his personality, which is of an extreme introvert, with a lot of, I think he's been open about this, so it's I think it's safe to say, but he had issues when he was a kid, when he was in school, and I think he kind of shut down a lot, and he joined this TSM team, and he had to open up and take on this personality of like talking a lot. He was talking so much in game, like he was talking so much, he was raising his voice, even though he was not the guy to raise his voice. He would force himself and teach himself to raise his voice. So for me, it was very admirable what he had achieved, what he had reached. That I
if you know where he started from, yes, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And he like adapted so well to America, to this American way of playing, and how he had to change his voice tone, be very insightful and very detailed on what he wanted to do, be so professional in receiving and taking feedback. And I don't know, it just felt like he had matured so much so fast, because I saw him in my Lemon Dog times, and I was like, shit, man, like, oh my God. But at the same time, I think he was missing what for me, consider the most important thing in teams, which was like the heart, the heart part. Like he had this like obsession with being a good professional that I feel like he forgot, like that, it's not just about being a professional, it's also about being a human being with your teammates in a non-fake way, like just being open about yourself and being open about what's going on with you, what you're feeling, what you're doing, and and I think that's what he failed at, and I think I think after I left, he worked on that a lot more, and we've been having a lot of talks, me and him, ever since I left. Like we always catch up every year, and I think I mean, like I said, for me it was super impressive how fast, how obsessed he was, and how much he learned, and how much he was able to mold his own personality. It was super impressive, and I think that's what this is, just personality wise, right? But
yes,
then
yes.
but I think this is what makes you a good player. If you're able to mold yourself so much outside of the game, and you're able to see things so to change things like that, that means that in game you're just doing the same thing, right? It's a game after all. It's all you have to do is you analyze, you see, you learn, you study, you practice, you adapt, and then you become the best, right? And I think that's what made him the best, is that he managed to do all of these things, and that's why he was so good. The reason why he wasn't as good internationally was because, given his personality, it's not like he can just plug and play against the best in the world without having gone through the adapt, learn, study, improve. He has 1 month to do that.
Right.
It's like this is what I think is super interesting, is like how many of these type of players, if they played in a different region altogether, like would they be where they are right now?
It was like Counter-Strike, where you could just go to a tournament every month and you get used to it.
Exactly. Like, for example, if we were playing Counter-Strike, like it's Counter-Strike format, right? I think Bjergsen would be a lot better than he is, right, or he was, or whatever, because he would take in information, take a break, take information, take a break, and he would be at the very top. That's what I think.
Okay, that's good. Right, what about this? When that team didn't work out and you came back to Europe, I think I even asked you maybe this on a talk show, like, didn't you just think about just straight up retiring, just like say fuck that after the TSM time? Were you always going to come back to Origin? Did you always have to still prove something?
Yeah, I couldn't retire. It's impossible. I had to prove something to myself. So I thought about retiring. Cloud9 already made me a coaching offer at the time, but I just had to, I had to prove myself. I had to know that I still got it, and I had to go through the dirt. I wanted to go through the dirt, and that was my mission. And I wanted to beat TSM, which is, again, something that in hindsight, I think I've been very vengeful.
You always want to beat the people you've played with for some reason.
I mean, I know it's part of competition, right? And that's who I am, and that's how I've been raised to be. But I think forgiveness is actually a much stronger and much harder thing to do. And I think it creates, it's more fruitful.
That sounds great, but are you good at it? Like, I would say the same thing, but I'm terrible at it. Exactly.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. yeah, but that's in hindsight, right? So yeah.
Okay.
Maybe next time I'm able to do that. So.
When you came to this Origin team, one thing I want to ask about was you got to play with nukeduck in 3 different teams. You played with him in Lemon Dogs when you were both coming into the LCS first. Then you were in the NIP team where, I mean, actually, you even got banned together. I guess you really were best mates, but just a joke there. And then obviously in season 9, I know. And then in season 9, you came back. And this is when, even though he was still a good player, I noticed people already had a lot of criticisms because obviously he's someone who'd never won a championship and he hadn't been to many international tournaments. And so even though he's sort of in the mix of you think of all the top mid laners that Europe's produced, I think people always, in English, you said there was always a knock against him. People were like, well, he wasn't this good for that reason, or it kind of he actually had a lot of the criticisms a lot of my favourite players did, or like, oh, is he too selfish, or does he play too much from self only, or whatever. What was nukeduck in season 9 like? Like, what do you think of his career in that regard?
I think he was still very good. I think he still had it, and I think he still had the same approach. I think his confidence lacked a lot more, and I think it's also, so to say, more understanding, because he'd been faced with, since he came back, he'd been through the big dirt. Like I was through the dirt for a split, he was through the dirt for like 2 years. So
yes,
he had to go through a lot, and he, from being the best behind Peke, I would say, he then had to deal with Peke, Caps, Perkz,
Febiven, loads of people, yeah.
Febiven, I mean, I think to this day he still thinks he's better than Febiven, but the other 3, I think they had this number at some point,
right.
and I think he probably had gone through a lot of from an internal battle, with his own ego, which was extremely big, just like mine was, So I think that had changed him for sure. And coming into this team, I think he was more of a, like let's just win. I'll do my best. But then when we started losing, I felt like he had gone through the losses, and the way he approached. I mean, it's not just him, but I think a lot of other players in the team. I got really fucking stressed, and I wanted to win no matter what. And I took on someone bash heads with me because I want to win, and either we go to hell together or we rise, and some other players were not really feeling that, and they were like, you dude, like, we're just keep working, it's fine, like it's like you don't have to be like that, and I think that was like a difference in personality and culture that I didn't really know how to change myself. They didn't really know how to deal with me, and that was rough for everyone, and I think he appreciated how I was, so it was, I think he always has, so it was nice. I just think maybe if I didn't live with him, it would have made a big difference. I always thought about that, because me and him were the ones sharing apartments, but maybe if I shared apartments with someone else, I would have been able to be more connected with that other person that I would be able to give feedback to. And since I already knew Erland could take and receive my own feedback, then maybe that would have created a better, communication system for every one of us. I don't really know, but yeah.
Okay. One thing I did always think was a bit underrated, and I've got my own theory on this, which is obviously Americans that you played in LCS, mate. It's not even just a meme. They think League of Legends is just fucking team fighting. Like, just that's why the joke is it's like the NA RAM. Like, they just have the 5v5 in mid lane all the time around the Baron, and then they think, right, that's the end of the game. Who won? So as a result, I can see why they couldn't appreciate nukeduck, because one thing nukeduck was always fucking mad good at was just being like a side lane pressure. Like, he always understood when to do that, when he had the strength to, when to back off. Like, and I know that's a very European way of playing League of Legends, but I think there's like a beauty to that style. Like, if you can pull it off, it's really tricky, but it looks fucking amazing if you can. What do you think about that aspect?
Yeah, I think he was always very good at playing the line. That was what made him strong, and I think he built on that strength, and he kept trying to take on like champions and like situations that would make him play that way, because he was very good at it. But I think he was actually, I mean, I think he's gone through moments in his career, right? But I don't think he was necessarily a bad team fighter. I just think he wasn't like, this crazy guy that did this crazy thing. But I think he was always, aware of what is going on in a team fight. And I think that's the most important thing that you need to do, is just sort of be aware and know what your role is. You don't need the crazy guy, not always. So, yeah, I think he was good. Honestly, I don't think he would have done bad in America because of his team fighting. I think he would do bad in America because he would maybe not be able to rely on his strengths of split pushing that much, or having this communicate this cultural shift maybe is a bit hard on him because I don't know, it's hard to give and receive feedback in a very constructive way. Sometimes it takes a while to learn. So
Sure.
I don't know. I think it's still to this day. I think he could go there and do well. Honestly.
In this Origin team, obviously because of how it ended, people forget that the spring split was great. That was the one where you guys were beating FNATIC. You were in the final with G2. Yes, obviously G2 was amazing, but spoiler, they turned out to be pretty fucking amazing against everyone in the world pretty much. So what about this? In the spring, everything looked great. At the beginning of summer, it was looking pretty good as well. You had a really nice map setups. Everything looked like it was going well. What would you describe the Origin experience like when you came back that year? What was it as good as it looked in spring? Why did it go to shit in summer? What would you say?
So we peaked at Rift Rivals. I had my vendetta against TSM, so I peaked for Rift Rivals, and then I just kind of started slacking, and everyone else in the team didn't really pick up the slack either, and they also were slacking themselves. And in the back of my mind, I felt that it'll be okay as long as we make it to the best of fives. We'll be fine. And then we just started losing, and it was like, shit, we're not gonna make it, and nothing works, and we just can't get the W's, and things just got very stressful. And at the time, the amount of time we had to play just one best of one was so limited that everything just went really crazy, and I went really crazy too, and didn't really help, I'm sure. So yeah, we just couldn't really get our shit together. I think I also was very ambitious, and instead of since in spring, even though I was ambitious in the sense that I want to prove myself and I want to do well, so I focused a lot on being a good player myself and teaching the team along the way. For the second part of so for summer split, it was more about we want to beat G2. It's not about being G2, but we need to be G2 to beat G2. We need to be G2 first to beat them. It's not like we have this necessarily ongoing strength that is gonna, we're gonna stick to this playstyle and this is how we're gonna beat G2. If G2 as a team can mold themselves to different playstyles given the opponent they face, they can play for top, they can play for bot, they can play for mid jungle. If they can do that, then we need to be able to mold ourselves to be like G2 or sort of like them, so we can actually give them a good series, give them a good run for their money by drafting similarly, or have our own product of creativity drafts that are going to challenge their own ideas about us. And I think I got really obsessed with beating G2 to the point where it hurt our progress. Yeah.
Obviously, like I said, you got to play them in the spring finals, and they were the team of the year, pretty much. They defined League of Legends, right? Normally, when people try to make super teams on paper where they've got all the best players, all mechanical gods or whatever the fuck, normally those teams don't work. And so that's one of the reasons I'm so impressed with the way that squad was so good. Like you say, they could play seemingly any style. Obviously, in draft, they were a fucking nightmare because they could just flex everything all over. What was it like to actually play against the prime G2? How do you describe it as a player? You're obviously a veteran player. You've played many, many different top teams over the years, been in some of the best teams.
I mean, it just felt really annoying because it just felt like it doesn't really matter what you do. Top gets ahead for your team, they will get an advantage bot or mid, and they will build around it and play very well as a team. Or I remember there were a lot of times where we actually had really good bot advantages, but then someone in our team made a mistake, or I made a mistake, or someone else, they will have an advantage elsewhere, and then the game goes even into mid game, and then I understand what's what our mistakes are in mid game, but it's like just really hard for me to articulate what is going on. It's like the very small things. Like they are moving well. They know what's going on. All of their players, if you just throw them into the deep ocean, they will know how to swim themselves back out. So they all know and have the experience to know. And I think the one that had the least experience in that team was Mithy, which
Yes.
was backed up with Perkz. By saying least experience, I mean least experience from a knowledgeable standpoint. Like he
Right.
was by far the best support at the time. Like he's fucking amazing mechanically, and at everything that involves League of Legends. It's just outside that space, like what to do in mid game, how to communicate, how to ward and all that stuff. Like I think he was lacking, and the fact that got patched by having Perkz coming to the role, and he took on a lot of responsibility from him, and then Mithy helped him with the mechanical part of playing AD carry. I think they just did a really good job at securing that side of the map to the point where it was a threat, and it was just like, oh shit, like what do we do? They have caps mid. Botlane is actually really fucking good. Top lane is not just good, but if you ignore him, he might actually just carry the game himself. And the jungler is like connected with every single lane and is very, very good team fighter on top. So what's it just
No
felt
weakness.
like
Yeah.
it felt hard. It felt like you have to play their game, otherwise you lose. And I mean that wasn't really the case, right? Like in the end, FPX played their game and they won. So
Yes.
I think G2 got so obsessed with this molding themselves to their opponent that then they went all in with FPX in the finals, and then they just couldn't really pick it back up. I think that was a big reason, and maybe that was what had to be done from the very beginning, like play your own game. The Chinese did a good job at that at the time with RNG the year before, IG the year after, no, the same year, and FPX the year after that. So the Chinese were, sticking to their guns, and G2 was like the moldable team, and the sticking to the guns team actually won. So that's how things started changing for other teams, Yeah, but for example, Damwon this year was quite moldable. So I don't know.
What about this then? Since that was the end of your playing career, at least at this point in time, who the fuck knows, maybe you come back in a few years. Since that was the end at that point in time, did it piss you off that you never got another championship? Was it something that you were, like, you said you were obsessed with beating these people. Was also getting another championship a big deal?
Yeah, but like the problem is, I think I think I was just overwhelmed with stress that year. At the end of the year, had like just personal stuff that really got the worst out of me, and the year didn't go well, and I felt responsible because Jonas had to take a leave, because he was dealing with a lot of stress himself, and partly I felt responsible, obviously, and I don't know, it just felt really really hard, like the breakdown at the very end of the year, and I don't think I handled that stress well. I think if I maybe had come back home straight away and just sort of relaxed and figured it out, it would have been easier. But we had to stay in Copenhagen to do, I don't even know what, business related stuff, like sponsors and all that. And yeah, I started playing World of Warcraft. Amazing game, by the way. It's not what I mean. It's just it was a game. It was a game that I played before, and I knew I was addicted to the game.
Right.
And I played it again, and I became addicted too, and it made me escape my feelings. But at some point you have to deal with them, and I never dealt with them for a long time, and I just really didn't approach the off season well, and I just wasn't ready, like mentally or actually mechanically I didn't feel ready to play in another team and have to grind with three new rookies that didn't know what the fuck is going on, and I have to teach them, or I will get stressed out again, if we're playing bad. And then what are my ambitions going to be if I'm not playing to be the best and I'm just playing to play? Then that's everything that I've been against when I started growing up to play the game, and maybe I've just never been mature enough to accept the change, or maybe it's just part of my identity as a player. I don't really know, but I wasn't ready to make the move at the time. I had an offer to join SK, but with Trick actually, but I was too scared. I don't know. I didn't take it.
If people don't know, I mean, I think we maybe referenced it in the other interview. Your esports career began in a game called Bloodline Champions, which essentially the short version is it's sort of like WoW 3v3 Arena, but like it was like a different game version of that where it was like an esports more.
Well, people don't know the whole story, right? Like my esports career, as in, I played a tournament, official tournament in Bloodline Champions, but actually I was playing Arena in WoW for many years before that. I was actually, me and Jensen, now Jensen, Wizik or whatever you want to call him at the time, me and him were best buddies, 2v2 partners. We were both 13-year-old kids sitting in our basement eating chips, and we both played together every single day.
That sounds like the two most toxic little kids to ever play any video game ever, mate.
yeah, and we were really, really good buddies, and we had our own way. I mean, when I play League with him now, when we duo queue, he's like my favorite partner to duo queue with, because we are, oh my god, we're like, it's just really fun, like we have our own relationship, right? And yes, it is toxic to the outside, but it's not to us, and sometimes it's like that, so yeah, anyway, so it started there. I was competitive since then. We were playing in this server, and it was a private server where there was like a shit ton of arena every day. We had these ratings we had to climb to be the best rating, and it was all about who was the best in the server at the end of the season, and that was it for me. That was my thrill, and then when I joined Bloodline Champions, the thrill was, well, there's no rating, there's a tournament, so I guess I have to play it, like it is what it is, if this is what it takes for me to show that I'm the best, then I'm gonna do it. And yeah, and then it was League after that.
Yes. But, so, okay, the point I was going to make was, when you came and you were in the game Bloodline Champions, that was a game that was quite a small esports game. Like, a big tournament for that would be like DreamHack, for example, which obviously now isn't even considered one of the major esports events anymore. It's like more of a tier 2 circuit. And at these tournaments, there wasn't a lot of prize money. I know back then you had some crazy scenario because you lived in the Canary Islands where you had like dog shit internet that was like 100 fucking ping to Europe.
20.
Like, yeah, 120 to Europe, even though you're not even that far from Europe. Obviously, it was bad routing and all that crap, right? Went to then later on have this career in League where you've won championships, you've been in MSI finals, semis at Worlds. Like, does it seem surreal? Can you believe it was you that did all this shit?
I think 16-year-old me would be proud of myself. Yeah. I think so.
Okay, so then what about this? When you moved to become a coach, right, this is the interesting thing. Because I've alluded to some of it in this, I'd heard so many good things throughout the years from teammates of yours, like things you helped them with, or like you had a good mind for the game, or you always said the right thing at the right time of the game, or whatever the fuck. I mean, you say you're not a shot caller. All I'm going to say is like just go look at all the teams you were in, except for TSM. Like they all just like trip over and have good macro. It's like it's a nice coincidence, isn't it? Must be nice for some. So when you were doing all this, I always thought you should be on those.
I just want to say you don't need shot calling for that. It's not the shot calling in itself. It's what comes behind. In between the games, the learning part that makes it be a flow in game. But yeah, as you were saying, sorry.
No, you can define it however you like. So then, when you came to become a coach, I remember thinking, like, if this is someone who's helped so many other players and worked with so many different players, like, this actually sounds like one of the rare examples of a player who should be a good coach. Like, this should work. But the one reservation I had was this, mate. As I alluded to before about Youngbuck, who I've done many shows with, I've been able to talk to quite a lot. I kind of knew, and none of these have ever been revealed because people know, like FNATIC's like the TSM of Europe. Like you get hated on by fans, and if things go on behind the scenes, you just don't talk about it. It just happens, and you move on with your life. So it's a thing. He's never revealed all the things that happened in that FNATIC team, but I know it was a fucking nightmare. And some of the things that he was like sort of like pulling together with crazy fucking schemes was like unbelievable. I can't even believe that team was in the finals, like going to Worlds and stuff. It's actually amazing. So I remember thinking, even if you're going to be a good coach, that's like coaching on nightmare mode. When you put like the hardest setting on the video game, like Why did he go to FNATIC, mate? That seems like that's a big challenge to go to. I remember their fans, just like TSM, they expect you to win even if there's G2 there.
Yeah, well, like if you listen to the whole thing that we've just talked about, right? Like anyone still listening, well, at this point, you would understand that that's just who I am as a person. And for me, nightmare mode just means learn faster, you know, than anyone else can learn, you know. Why not take the path to learn the most if you can, you know? Like, there's no reason not to. Best case scenario, you know, you're a fucking hero. Worst case scenario, well, that fucking sucks, you know. And if you make it somewhere in between, maybe you learned a shit ton along the way. And it was fucking stressful year for sure. But you know, if things were a shit mess, it's because, you know, there's a lot of things that I did wrong along the way, and a lot of things that I could have maybe some I couldn't change, but some I could have changed, or my perception of them could have changed, and my way of handling them could have changed. And all of this is what I take from the experience, right? It's like, what went wrong? How can I avoid it from going wrong next time? And you know, maybe I won't, maybe I will, but I feel like it was the best experience for me to have.
Is it a different experience to try and draft as the coach as opposed to being a player in the team, suggesting stuff, sometimes getting to choose things? What's it like?
I think the biggest change for me, it will answer this question, is the authority shift. You know, I wasn't ready to be, yo guys, I'm the big boss daddy now. You have to call me coach or daddy, and you will do what I say. You know, it was like, yo guys, yeah, I'm not playing the game with you, but we're gonna do things how I think we should do things, but I want you guys to feed into this vision, you know, this idea, and, you know, tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm right, you know, and just kind of work together to make it be a thing. But there was a lot of other things that, you know, planning, you know, taking on that authoritative position when I had to, you know, telling people off, or not knowing how to, from an authoritative position, tell someone off the same way I would as a player, or, you know, knowing that I'm the school teacher, and at some point people just get bored of the school teacher, because that's just life. You know, as a player,
Sure.
you always have this power of being like, yo guys, I'm one in the group, you know, so if I say this, you guys have to fucking listen, you know. And I, you know, standing in in a different position, it was harder for me to take on that approach. And you know, there's this all other things that it just felt hard, like even drafting, like staring at the blank sheet. You know, it's not the same as, hey, this is my priorities for bot lane. This is what I want to do. I don't want to play with this champ. I want to do this. But this is my idea, and I think this is what we should ban. So, you know, go ahead and try stuff, and then let me know what you find, and let's figure something out together after that, and let's draft against each other. From a player point, you know, this creates a movement within your team with teammates, and you're like, yo, let's do this, you know, hey, like, what do you think about this draft? What do you do this? You know, within the players, that's what I would do.
Yes.
But then as a coach, if I come in and say like, yo, what do you think about this draft? Let's do this. Like, what do you think? The players are like, what the fuck, my coach? He doesn't know what he's doing, you know? Like, what is going on? Like, well, like I already told you, like, these are my priorities, you know? Like, go figure it out. Like, I don't know, it's your job, not mine, you know? And that was like, fuck, like, okay, I guess it is my job, but, you know, I don't know if I really see it that way. And yeah, I think it was just like a very cultural difference for me, you know, like a big shift, big way of like, okay, actually, if I coach next time as a head coach, I really should write down what values I want to bring into the team, what structure I want to bring into the team, how I want to plan things out, what I want, what is the red line that I never will cross and I never want my players to cross, and what is, you know, the way we are going to do things in this moment, this moment, this moment, this moment. You know, I didn't have shit planned out. I was just like a football player, a football coach is like, okay, guys, go run a bit. Oh, no, you're kicking the ball wrong. No, you're doing this. But I wasn't actually, you know, planning anything ahead of time. And, you know, towards the end of the year, a lot of these things that were not really tackled at the start started to kind of like like, we didn't create like a baseline structure, so things started tumbling a lot, and then the whole thing fell, and then we made like a little wooden tower, and then that one fell, and then we made another wooden tower, and that one fell, and yeah, it was it was rough. It was rough.
Right, even though when you were playing in Season 9, that was like the unbeatable G2. In the spring was where they did that weird roster swap where Caps was the AD carry. And then because they lost to Mad Lions, that you met them in the final. And I remember, even though I don't even like some of the players of FNATIC, even I thought FNATIC was going to win that final because like Caps was looking a bit ropey. And then there's even that ridiculous story that they fucking tell that I almost wish they just made up because it sounds like some shit out of a movie, mate. Where like Caps, like the night before the finals, was like, I had a dream that we could play Kog'Maw Lulu. Like some stupid story like that. And then somehow they did it and it fucking worked. Like, can you explain this to me? What happened there? Wasn't FNATIC supposed to win that final? What happened, Mithy?
No, we were not actually. We had our backs against the wall. We basically needed 4 bans on red side because no one in the team agreed to play against one of the red side picks. And we had 3 locked bans on blue side. So this going into a best of 5 series, knowing that you don't want to take red side, and you have 3 locked bans on blue side means if anything goes wrong, you're probably going to lose. That's one thing. And then going into the game, not only did G2 probably know or guess that, but they also, like I said before, they have this molding, like they cater around you as a team and exploit your weaknesses, build on their strengths, but mostly exploit your weaknesses and, try to adapt to that. And so you can't really catch them before the game starts, and just sort of build that way, and I think that's what made them so strong. That's what made them, who'd they beat this year? That was really hard. Genji, like they dismantled Genji 3-0, I'm sure they play against each other in scrims the whole, they probably had negative win rate against Genji in scrims, but then they go on stage and they dismantle them. Why? Because they do their homework, and it's not just. I don't want to take any blame for myself. I like I said, I did a bad job, but it's not just about their coach doing his job. All of their players are, like you said, Caps is having a dream. Why is he having this dream? Because he's trying to think, how do I, exploit enemy bot lane? What do I do? I know the conditions, I know how they play. I've studied this together with my team because I've sat down 5 hours after work to watch over the replays and their drafts, and I have this extra, thing. What was it? What Luca told me that all of the, they all live in the same house, and I think at like 11 p.m. 3 hours after scrims, they would most of them would sit down in the sofa and start talking draft or start watching their own replays for fun, for playoffs, because they thought that's gonna improve them more than playing solo queue. No other team in Europe did that.
No.
This creates like a different beast when you play a best of 5. That's what we did in G2.
If people don't know, most players, like the coach has to almost force them to do anything except for the scrims. Like, he has to make sure they play the solo queue, make sure they beg them to try and watch a VOD or something. But usually even then they won't. Like, it sounds like that's a mad advantage if you have people who want to do it. They're nerding out.
But this is not just you don't just have people that want to do it. This is, it's a work in progress. It takes a lot of energy and effort from each individual, in that team. It's a give and take, right? Even from the coach. They had something that we didn't, and the fact that the system in the LEC with the double elimination promotes that behavior made us, be checkmated in both finals. That's what happened, you look at the first time we played, in Summer Split, right? We came in with a plan, we executed on our plan, we had a backup plan, we did our backup plan, and we got them to 5 games, But then G2 has a different chance, and they mold, and we don't mold anymore because we gave all our yeah, and if we're not able to mold and they are, then what's going to happen in the next final? Well, yeah, you lose the first game, you lose the whole series, that's kind of what happened, and that was it, That's why G2 were so good.
When you went to Worlds and you had this quarterfinal series against Top, where it looked like you were going to win. Everything was looking awesome. Things almost couldn't be better. Like, I don't think anyone predicted the game was going to go that way. Coming in, I heard from one of the players on their team that it's not even like, because if you saw the way like the Botlane and FNATIC played against theirs was like another unexpected angle, how aggressive they were. Obviously, it's not even traditionally what people think like Rekkles' game is like. You know, they know Hylissang's a bit like that. Like, the other player in FNATIC was basically saying like that wasn't even something that he was told, or that was like in theory the plan or whatever. Like, what was the concept coming in to try and beat top, and how do you think back on that series?
Well, like looking at the games they had in the whole tournament, it's not like they're bottling. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't. I mean, not you, but later, like if some analyst can please show me how their bot duo was exploitable from watching their games, then I'd be more than blessed to see it. But I was also, this is my fault, right? But I wasn't very resourceful there. I felt like I didn't really know what I'm supposed to do. I didn't really know what my role as a coach, like what I have to, what do I have to do? Do I have to prepare a draft? Do I have to be in charge of reviews? Do I have to analyze the enemy bot lane and what they're should be exploited about? And I have to analyze the whole enemy team and what they should be exploited about. Like, it felt like a very overwhelming task for myself, alone. And although we had an analyst squad that was helping us, and in my opinion did a good job, and I also had an assistant coach in Shaves that was helping, and I just really didn't see how I could figure that out. And I honestly haven't gone back through all the top esports games to see if I could have found the solution before we played them, but reality was we didn't, and we just focused on getting the matchups that we were comfortable with in the bot lane, and the matchups that most importantly Hilly was comfortable with for himself, because their support played a very specific style that I mapped out for Hilly, and then we played around that. And yeah, it happened to be that we did well bot lane, but the initial plan was just draft for teamfight, play for teamfight, play against them. Like they do the same thing we do, but they get herald and we don't. So just do our thing when they get herald. Get Martin ahead for it, and see and play from there. And try to get the champs that we can play, because we couldn't play a lot of champs. So try to get them into our ball game. Like let them play our game. Don't play theirs, because we're not gonna win if we play theirs. And that was the reality of it. Like if you see their team compared to our team, there's no way we win that series. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I saw it, honestly.
Sure.
Just from studying both teams. So the best thing for us to do was play our ball game, take them into our court, do what's good for us, and try to avoid some of the dangers that they bring into the table, and then be aware of how they set up the fights and set up our own fights, play with our comfort champions, and we have the best shot doing that, in my opinion. And that's what we did. And we got the first two games that way, even though, sure, our Botlane won, and it was much easier to win through that, But the first two games, we also had our Graves Oriana or Kindred Oriana or whatever it was, Like we had what we planned, So it was nice. Or we had Galio in one of the games, but then somehow the Galio worked well and our bot duo was smurfing, so we got that game going. And then the game after that, we got our Oriana, so we were rolling. And then our backup plan was, if enemy gets Oriana, we're gonna take Vel'Koz. That didn't work, so then we had to take blue side. And then on blue side, they didn't really prioritize set, so we took a risk that they would not play set, and then they did. And they took the Nidalee, and then we had to adapt in the fly, because the draft was already a big disaster because we took a flip, and then Healy took a bullet for me and took the set away. And he actually did a really good job on set, but then we had a huge lead and we fucked up and we lost. And then the game 5, we were out of options. Like we didn't really have anything going. We didn't agree on any single blue side draft. And the enemy team banned Graves and Oriana, so we were fucked, basically. So.
How would you describe Hylissang as a player? Obviously, you played support for a long, long time. As you've even said in this interview, there's times you considered yourself the best. Because he's the player where I notice, obviously, when he makes all those sick plays and he's on his like playmaking champions, he looks like a genius. He can do amazing shit that no one else can do. But he's also the player that seems to get the most criticism from his own fans because he has the games where he hints or people say, he cost you the game, lost the game. So who is this guy? What's it like to be around someone like that? What type of player is he?
It's hard to scrim with him, for sure.
Is he just ruining them all?
He's really crazy. I don't know, man. Like, he has something that not many people have, He really believes in what he's doing, and he just goes on and does it, and he sees things that others don't. And he trusts wholeheartedly in his team and expects the same, but doesn't care if it's not there. He just like mans up about things, And he's a great fucking player, I think the biggest thing for him is confidence. I think he needs to feel trusted, loved, and confident about himself, And then he is capable of, things I can't even describe. He's fucking insane.
What about Rekkles? There we go. I said it. We've gone the whole interview. Hasn't come up. But there's the question, right? Obviously, as a veteran of LEC, EULCS, you were always playing against this guy in other bot lanes. So you were there from when he was in FNATIC. Obviously, he was in FNATIC again. And later on, well, he's basically always been in FNATIC most of the time you've been there. Who is this guy? You got to coach him. You got to play against him. Did you get a different insight from being a coach of him? Who is Rekkles the player?
Yeah, I got a different insight. I think he's been able to recognize his strengths, and I think he does this very well about his own teammates too. He's able to recognize his strengths or their strengths, and he just wants to build on the strengths no matter what. And if he has to, and he will just be like totally crazy about it, like. If he will have to play like the most weird shit, he will do it because he knows this is his strengths or this is his teammates' strengths, and this is what we should go for because it's the highest chance of winning, And I think one of his things that maybe he should work on is, trusting a process of, we're not good at this, but we can slowly work towards it. But I do agree that I think, and it's what's given him so much success is like this, recognizing the strength and going 100% on it has been successful for him. And I think it's I think it's actually him that made us get out of groups with so much ease. He told me like, hey dude, like what we're doing for scrims and for groups is not working. Can we just go on our strengths and build on that and draft this way? Like this idea, And then I was like, actually, you know what? You're totally right. Let's do that. And because not only because we did that, obviously it was a group effort, but I think that was a very big, help for me preparing for this group stage of, this is what we should do. And we actually did that and came out really fucking strong in week 1.
Right. Obviously, when people see this interview, they'll already know officially you're going to be a coach for Cloud9, but crucially, you're going to be like the strategic coach. So, in a sense, it's more like in your wheelhouse. You don't have to do like a lot of things you described that you thought you failed in FNATIC sound like that's head coach duties, and you didn't necessarily know what to do there, or it was hard to adapt to. Just give us some basic thoughts. Like, what's the thinking of going to Cloud9, and was one of the main reasons because Perkz is going to be there?
Well, I like I said, I had this thing with Cloud9 since a long time now, right? 2017. I helped them after we failed getting out of groups. I had a lot of energy in me. It'd been a long year and a half of working on all of this stuff that I wanted to give back to another team, another Western team. And at the time I talked to FNATIC, they didn't seem so as keen as Cloud9 was. So I tagged on to Cloud9. I helped them. They got out of groups by themselves. I didn't do anything, and I didn't do anything with quarters and all that, but I kind of helped them. I was along with them, and I tried to help with whatever I could and kind of find my own space. And I think Jack was really like that. And then he tried to sign me for, when I joined TSM, he actually tried to sign me for C9, but I wanted to join with Jesper, and Sneaky was there at the time. So that was not possible. And then when I went back to Origen, C9 already wanted me. So we always had this relationship. So actually, no, it wasn't because Perkz and Zven are in Cloud9 that I joined Cloud9. I love Zven and Perkz, and I'm happy that they're there. It's a bonus. It's a great fucking bonus, But it's not the reason I joined Cloud9, because maybe I feel like it's time for me to, take on a role of a bit less responsibility, and sort of like take on a bit of a slow down approach and just sit back and learn. And I'll probably accelerate myself into that same, let's fucking win, guys, But I think it's also good for me to learn how to be a number 2, And I think Rangover is, I played against him. I think he was fucking annoying to play against. I remember. Especially because of the early game and stuff, like he was rough, man. He was really smart too. Amazing. Learned a lot from him, and I'm super happy to work with him, And I think we can do a good job. I don't really know what my role is going to be. I don't think he knows either. I don't think he knows what his role is going to be, because a team is about empowering your players, and what the best way of doing that is going to be up to us to figure it out together. And that's really all I can tell you. It's not really. I don't really know what my role is going to be within the team.
Okay.
So
this might sound like a weird question, right? Because in theory, since season 9, when G2 won MSI and went to the final of Worlds, and every time they played Koreans, they were beating them, which in your era was supposed to be impossible when you were in G2, when you were in TSM, etc. Like, because of that, I actually feel like in some ways it's given other teams, while it's given them hope that they could do it, it's also kind of given them almost like a false pressure, because there's only one G2. Like, that lineup was just, we've described it in this show, they were fucking unbelievable. Like, they just had something special about them. Even the style was so unique. So I always felt like actually it was teams like FNATIC, like the other European teams, like the best American team, who the other fans would be looking at them like, right, why didn't you win MSI, or why didn't you go to the Final Worlds? It's like, that felt a bit implausible, right? Do you look now at the current landscape? Obviously, you're going to Cloud9, you've got some big name players there, you've got Perkz included. Is it on the table? Like, is it silly to think that, like, an NA team could win Worlds, could do these enormous things?
One thing that I have come to learn over the years is that when I look back, I don't really see what I won and what I didn't win, and when I lost and when I didn't lose. Like, for example, this year for me at FNATIC was a failure, even though I think we did fucking great on paper, right? Like, we actually did a good job. We put out a really good fight and we did a good job, but it's the heartfelt feeling that, you worked through tough times and you pulled through and you felt like a team, all this blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to go over it again, but I think that's more what I'm looking for right now. And, I'm sure we can achieve great things, but, first and foremost for me is getting that in line.
Do you actually, as a coach, still have the mentality you had before? Like, for example, you're going to C9 now, mate. Is the whole goal to just wreck TSM? I mean, Bjergsen's a coach now, mate. That would be a classic example of one of your past rivalries, right? Is it now to just wreck all your past? If you play G2, are you going to try and wreck? Is that the logic?
No, it's not. I think I'm changing. Yeah, I think I'm changing.
Okay, at the end of this interview, do you have anyone you want to thank or a final message you want to give people?
No, I'm fine. Thanks.
Yeah, muchas gracias.
Yeah, muchas gracias.
This video was kindly supported by Lager15, Pronogo, Mohammed Al Abdul Razak, Dean Tanglis, Animosity, Eric Hillistad, Andreas Crockneys, Hades, Jensen Go, Zumba, J-Dubs, Tobias Bernasconi, Alexander Rao, and as always, a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Do you want to ask me a question in one of those monthly AMAs I do? Would you like teasers for who's going to appear next on my content? Or would you even like to take part in one of those crazy donator discussions I do where we go all over the place? Well, if so, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrolluminati today at the Patreon link in the description box below.